Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all keeping well. Now today I've got a very special guest. I'm joined by Lucy, who a lot of you will know on her Instagram for her analysis, and she does also do stuff on AFTV. So thank you, Lucy, for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having you on. I know we spoke about this for a little while, but the time we could never really sort it
No,
out. So
literally.
I'm just
It's
happy to
simple.
have you on. And I know you were at the Arsenal women game in that incredible victory against
Mhm.
United. And I just thought let's talk about that first because, having a breaking records of like that crowd of 60,000 is absolutely incredible. Just talk to me a bit about what it was like to be at that game.
It was honestly, I don't know if you've seen the video of like me and my dad on my Instagram, but we were just really soaking up that atmosphere because I'm someone that got into Arsenal through the women's team. So being a 10-year-old, 10, 11-year-old girl going to see women play football was something I'm very lucky to have experienced because I realised not many people have actually had that opportunity. But we would be at Meadow Park and there would be maybe maximum 50 people. So now to be watching over 60,000 people watching the women play and obviously win is just the bonus on top of that. But to actually see that many people, it was honestly just it was really overwhelming. Like I even get goosebumps thinking about it now because Arsenal are just leading the way with so many things. We're breaking all these records. I mean, if you look at the top five WSL attendances, it's all from Arsenal. It's all from the Emirates. So I'm hoping this is the first of many more. But honestly, the atmosphere actually being part of it, we were quite high up, but I feel
Yeah.
it was better to then actually see fully the surroundings of every seat was filled pretty much. Like I don't think there were many empty ones. So yeah, just to soak up that atmosphere was so good.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible to see. And I know with women's football, it has really grown. And now Arsenal, for me, I feel like in the WSL, we are that team that are kind of leading the way more than the other ones because I've noticed, like, I know with United and Chelsea, they obviously can get, really good attendances. But I
Mhm.
think for us to be able to get, 50 plus and sustain that and at the Emirates, we are really getting that crowd that we deserve. I think it's really lovely to see. And as you mentioned before, that's how you did get into watching football with the women's team. Like for you growing up, like you said, never used to be this sort of, attendances. It's not until like the last few seasons that things have really picked up. But for you, do you ever imagine that, Arsenal women one day would get 60,000 at the Emirates?
No, honestly, I think as well when I was younger, I just saw this as it was almost normal that I'd go a few seasons in a row until I started playing myself on a Sunday. So it meant I couldn't because obviously I'm from South London, so traveling to North London, it was quite tricky to do that every week. But it sort of just became a norm to just go and see these players perform, but also a norm that me and my dad would get in for a tenner with a program as well because I think my ticket was literally like £2.50 to get in when I was 10, which is actually just crazy to think of the players on that pitch because the likes of Kim Little, who we obviously saw get a penalty at the weekend, she was still in that squad back then before she went to America. So we had world class players on the pitch, yet it was so cheap. And I think for me, just being able to see the growth of the love for the game as well, not even just, yes, there's more people, but it's just getting that awareness out there and people now know who the likes of Kim Little are, whereas people only really know about Alex Scott now through her punditry that she does. Whereas for me, I saw her first when she was playing as a defender for Arsenal. So it's just really nice to see the game growing in the sense of the awareness, definitely as well.
Yeah, I think it's really lovely to see. Like for me, I've watched Arsenal women for quite a few seasons now, and
Mhm.
it's so lovely to see how far we've come because I know with the Euros, with the Lionesses winning it in the World Cup, that
Mhm.
has definitely helped a lot of, people see women's football differently. But for me, like you said with us, we've obviously, watched the likes of like Beth Mead, Leah Williamson for quite a few years. And like you said, Kim Little, we've seen them for
Yeah.
a very long time. And to see them now get this recognition, the support that they deserve, it's so lovely. And I feel like with us at Arsenal, we can sustain it. We can, get that big crowds, and I think
Mhm.
it's really lovely to see them play at the Emirates, more and more each season. And we also did see Jen Beattie, was she said her goodbye, and I
Yeah.
thought it was a great way to end winning 3-1. But for you, I just wanted to talk about Jen Beattie because she obviously has left Arsenal now. For me, I kind of suspected she was leaving or she was retiring. I
Yeah.
had this feeling because I could see when she was posting stuff, it felt like a goodbye. Did it surprise you when she announced that she was leaving?
I'm sort of the same with you on this one because I noticed she was almost going on more podcasts and putting herself out there in more of a
Yeah,
media way as well. And I was like, right, is she doing this as maybe a career option after Arsenal? I think as well, if you look at the starting lineup, especially with Williamson back in the squad, she's very unlikely to get that game time because the quality of now Ilestead coming in, Codina, we've
yeah,
got so many new defenders coming in. I feel as though you realise that yes, Jen Beattie, unreal player, like obviously with her header in the semi-finals, that's what I remember her most for. But it's just almost her time to go, and I think she's, you know, that sort of phrase, "Quit while you're ahead." I think definitely this is a good time because she's at a good position with the club. Instead of just becoming that bench warmer that you don't. She's better than that. She shouldn't just be on the bench all the time. So I definitely agree with you. I feel like it was kind of expected, but I'm not sure as well. Sort of linking to that with Kim Little, that's a player that
mm,
I'm sensing it could happen, like her
yeah.
could happen. And I don't know how you're feeling about it, but for me, that will be such a big loss for the club because she's literally, well, she's converted the most penalties. I saw this stat this morning, 19.
Yeah.
And that just proves how many years she's been in the WSL. So I don't know how you're feeling about that one as well.
You know what? It's gonna be like a really emotional and difficult
Mhm.
day when Kim Little retires. I know that. I do think she probably only has a few more left in her like seasons because I know each season she's starting to get more injured, and I know
Yeah.
she's obviously an incredible player and she's so important for us, but you can tell her body's sort of at that stage now where it's struggling a bit, and it's going to be really tough. I think with Jen Beattie, like you said, I don't think she would have got much game time because, like you said, Leah Williamson, Ruben Moy as well. She's really stepped up this season and being
Yeah.
such an important player. So it'd be hard for her to have a space in the starting 11. And like you said, she is good enough to be in a starting 11 for a team. And like you said, with her doing a lot of podcasts, I was sort of thinking, is she going to retire? So I wasn't like completely shocked because I had a feeling about it. But I know in the game, like we said, we did win 3-1. And then Man City as well also beat Chelsea, which did surprise me. But for you in a title race, I know that Chelsea and Man City are about 3 points above us. And I know in a WSL you can't really afford to lose a lot of games because you don't really play a lot. You kind of have
Yeah.
less sort of game time as well. For you, do you think us beating United has changed things in the title race? Like we can go on and catch Man City and Chelsea now?
I think 100%. I think the whole way we did it by being in front of that record breaking crowd, by winning by not just one goal, but having that advantage throughout pretty much the whole game, it's just so annoying we couldn't keep that clean sheet. But I think it definitely has almost sparked something in the fan base that everyone's like, right, okay, maybe this is on, especially like you said, it is so unpredictable as well in the WSL with City losing it what could happen next. We just need to make sure we keep this momentum. It's similar with the men's game as well, but obviously in the Premier League, you win a game and suddenly you go up really far, or you lose a game, you go. Whereas the women, you have to keep winning because it's tight, but it's harder when you're playing less games to get the points. Um, but definitely, I feel like as though we do have a chance. I've been doubting Jonas Edeval just a little bit because the fact that we got knocked out the FA Cup, obviously that was quite a controversial decision, but just a few things that have happened over the last season. I watched the documentary they did and I just loved how he interacted with the players.
Yeah,
That's such a good person and really good for the girls. But then there's also where's the silverware, where's the titles? We need that to come with it. And maybe Arsenal fans are a little bit greedy because of our trophy field history, but I do feel like we deserve, well, the girls deserve more than just a Conti Cup, which hopefully we
yeah.
be able to progress this season. But I think in terms of the title race, I'd love to do it. And I think, if anything, Jonas Edeval needs us to do it just for his job at the end of the day. I'm not sure what you're thinking about, whether you think him in or out, but it is a debate that's kind of reoccurring now.
Yeah, it has been, online quite a lot, and
Mhm.
I'm like with you. I like him so much. I like when I saw the documentary. He just feels like the right fit as like who he is as a person. He kind of understands this club. But this season, I think, do you know some of our results at the start of the season, especially? I did expect us to probably gel a bit more than what we had doing. I mean, we have started to pick up results, and when we've obviously lost a few games, we've picked ourselves back up. So I kind of get feel positive about that, but I do kind of expected us to be a lot better than what we have been. I mean,
Yeah.
it is hard in the title race because it's very competitive. I know United really aren't able to compete at the moment, and it's kind of us and Man City and Chelsea. But I think with all the ACL injuries we had last season, I thought, winning the Conti Cup, I think, I'm happy with that because the team
Mhm.
couldn't have done anything more. But I
No.
think this season, now we've got a few of our players back. We're seeing how important Beth Mead, Williamson is, but I just think we've got to win something this season, and I think it's so important that we win a title because it has been a long time, and it is quite frustrating, isn't it, that we've not really been able to do it.
No, honestly, I think it's it's annoying because I know quite a few Chelsea fans as well, and obviously this is such a big season for them because it's Emma Hayes' last season, so they wanna go out on a high. They wanna do go as far in the Champions League, win the title, win the FA Cup, the Conti Cup. They wanna do it all, and it's just hard because right now the only things we have is the Conti Cup and the title race. So there's even more pressure on the title race right now. So I'm just hoping it just is the next couple months are really crucial, especially when we play Chelsea away. That's when that's I think that's going to be a big turning point of whether we're actually title contenders or if we're not because we beat them once. So I'm hoping we can do
Yeah.
it then, but we'll
Yeah,
definitely
that game was really good at the Emirates. It was
have to.
like such a dominating performance, and I think it'll probably go down to that. But yeah, I definitely think it's getting exciting, and I think we're going in the right direction. But I think we can't really lose any more games, really. But I did want to ask you a bit about the men's team as well because we're just on fire at the moment since we've had that
Honestly.
break from Dubai. We literally can't stop scoring goals. And I did want to, touch on the Burnley game. We won 5-0. I was not expecting that. I did say before the game, I reckon we can win a 2-1, 3-1, but we won 5-0. Talk to me a bit about that game and how you're feeling right now about the club.
I'm the exact same with you. I feel like I've got almost maybe I don't know why, because we should be our number one fans, but I feel like almost we doubt it a bit, and I'm like, oh, maybe they might get an odd goal. You never know with these teams; it's so unpredictable. But to get 11 goals away from home in the last two games is pretty mental. And I was buzzing because obviously I was at the Emirates. I didn't then get to watch like the first half, so I've only really watched the highlights of the men's game. But it's just, I think it's just our composure. Like we're just on the attack all the time, it feels like. I know there are people that are sort of hating on certain players like Trossard. Yes, he scored, but it's like, could he have scored more? And I think it's just making sure we're really taking those chances. But I don't really think you can fault the team too much considering we did get 5 goals in that game. And they came from so many different strikers, like, well, not strikers, so many different players, which is just really good to see that it's not all from open play, it's not all from penalty. It is just I don't know, it just feels really it's an exciting time, definitely. I think both the men and women right now we're sort of
Yeah.
and I can see that you're but like I just feel like we're both just buzzing about it, which is just
Yeah, I can't stop smiling really. I mean, like I said this before that I think it's better now, before we had that break from Dubai to make,
Mhm.
have our time where where we go through a bit of a difficult patch because we are at the stage in the season where we can change things, we can make things work. Because usually at the end of the season, we'll kind of slow down a bit and we'll run out of energy and we won't be able to get across the line. And I feel like I'd much rather us do it now so we can change things because
Mhm.
a lot of people have written us off. I know a lot of pundits, I know the media don't really see us as a favourite to win the league. I mean, last season we got so close, and people really should be giving us more credit. But do you think by people not giving us that credit, it kind of the pressure's off us now, which makes it a bit easier for the team?
I was literally thinking that as you were saying, I was like, "That is actually quite true," because the limelight is always going to be on City, and that's why when they almost crumbled against Chelsea and ended up getting just 1 point, everyone's like, oh my god, maybe they're not going to win, maybe they're. Whereas for us, we're just kind of just getting all our clean sheets away from home, just getting all them goals. It puts us in a comfy position. I think, especially, I look at the beginning of this season, and there was so many eyes on Spurs because it was unexpected that they'd be that high up for so long, and then we kind of then was sailing past. So I'm hoping. I feel more confident if we're going to compare the leagues. I feel more confident for us to win the WSL than I do the Premier League, because the Premier League can change like that. Like, it can just change so quick. Like one game you drop 2 points, or you drop 2 or 3 points, and then suddenly you've dropped so many positions in the table, especially how tight it is at the top with Liverpool and City. But I do see us getting at least second, and I don't think that's a bad position. Like, I think that's an amazing position for us to be in, because if you look at last season, if we can match that and then keep that consistency up, it's like almost next season we'd have to win, because there's only so many players. For instance, Saka, his game time is so high. I don't think he'd be able to do this for another few seasons without being rewarded with some form of silverware. If that makes sense. But I see us definitely staying in the top 3 this season. I'm hoping we can come second or first, but I don't want to jinx anything, so I'll probably just settle for second. But yeah, I'm feeling more confident. Like, it's definitely a good time to be a Gooner right now for football as a whole. And obviously with the men, we still do have the Champions League to get excited about as well. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we can't complain at the moment. I think it is really good, and I'm really glad that we have picked that form up. And I think it's good that we're getting clean sheets as well, because Raya doesn't really get a lot of credit. I know that we are lucky to have such a great defence in Gabriel Saliba, Ben White, etc. But I did want to talk a bit about that, to give Raya some credit for his performances, because a lot of the time as well for the goals, he is the one that kind of distributes them, the passes, and he's the one that makes things happen. Talk to me, obviously, Ramsdale last season, we all love him, and we had this great connection with him, and now it's all changed with Raya. What have you made of Raya this season?
See, I was really excited when Raya came in, because I just knew he was really good on the ball, and I felt as though if we were going to have that ball playing football from the back, he'd be a perfect addition. And it is crazy to think that we were having that debate of Raya or Ramsdale at the start of the season so many times. I know on my personal Instagram anyways, I was doing a few videos. It felt like every week talking about the same topic, whereas I haven't had to do one in a while, because Raya is our clear number 1 right now. He is the clear goalkeeper. I think what you say about obviously the defence is good, which is very true, but also how, especially in the game when we played against West Ham a couple of weeks ago, I noticed he was pushing up a lot. So he was almost creating like 5 at the back instead, which meant that we could have Ben White inverting down the line, and it's just creating more space on the pitch. And I'm not saying you didn't really get that from Ramsdale, but I just feel like there's just more creativity from the back, because we're more comfortable on the ball. Comparing it to the women's game as well, Sabrina D'Angelo, I feel like she slotted in perfectly, almost done a similar role, a similar thing of taking Zinsberger's position, and she's very calm on the ball, so she's able to play out the back. And I think you've got to start from the back. Yes, 5 goals in one game, 6 goals in another game, that's got to come from the players up at the top, but how's the ball getting there? Like what you said was spot on about the distribution. I think it's so key to start off well at the back. So I think going into next season, I don't really know. Like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Ramsdale, but I don't know where he'd end up, because for me, Raya is the clear keeper. We don't talk much about him now because we're so content with him, I feel like.
Yeah, it is strange, because like last season, I know Ramsdale had made the odd mistakes, but because he was so good, he made up for it. Like he could get away with it, because a lot of the time he performed so well. And this season, when we bought Raya, I thought Raya would probably play a few more games than Matt Turner did, because Matt Turner, we all knew that he was our second choice. Ramsdale was our first choice. Like, there was not really that competition there. But this season is a difficult one because I think, I was very back and forth with Ramsdale, Raya. Like it was really, it took me a long time to decide who I thought was better. And I feel like with Raya, when I've watched him at like the big grounds at Anfield, I've noticed that he's got this calmness about him. Like he doesn't,
Mhm.
it's hard to explain, but I suppose with Ramsdale, I love this about Ramsdale, but it could be seen as a bad way. When he gives it back to the fans,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
opposite team. I know he has mentioned in a podcast about lack of concentration. So there's
Mhm.
things like that that could be seen, as things that he could work on. And I think with Ramsdale, I reckon we might be selling him, but I don't know who you would sell him to. Like, who would we sell Ramsdale to? It'd be
Yeah.
weird watching him play for a different team in the Premier League.
Literally, especially I was going to say, especially if he does stay in the Premier League, because I remember, I think it was around Christmas, like the January transfer, I think was pretty dead for us. Like there wasn't really too much happening, but I guess that is normally the January transfers, anyways. But I remember some of my friends mentioning, "Oh, what if he goes to Chelsea or a team like that?" And I was like, "That's so weird," because it would be the London derby. But honestly, it just sort of it is a weird one to think, but I think when you have that connection with the club and with the fans as well, it's really hard to leave the club before retirement. Because when we mentioned obviously like Jen Beattie or Kim Little earlier, when Kim Little goes, it will probably be retirement. I couldn't see her moving on to a different club. So then it's like you can have that wholesome, sad energy. Whereas if Ramsdale then moved to another Premier League club, you can't still have the love for him, but then also he's your rivalry, he's your enemy now, so you can't have too much. Like it will be a tricky one. But I do think Arteta's how I've been interpreting it anyways. His starting 11, if you look at it, is always Raya. So I think he is maybe the clear one.
Yeah, I definitely think from now on I do see Raya as our number one, and I feel quite happy with that because I think his
Mm-hmm.
performances, he's grown in confidence and he's gotten better as the season has got on. And did want to talk about one of the other signings, Havertz, because when he came, he had a lot of fans. I'll put my hands up and say this. I wasn't overly excited about it because I knew we needed a striker and I knew we needed someone that is really going to elevate this Arsenal team like Declan Rice does right now for Arsenal. And I was a bit unsure, but I also thought like I do like to reserve my judgment because I remember when we signed Ben White, a lot of people were saying like it's a waste of money, like it's a lot of money to sign, and he's proven that he's been worth every penny. But for you, from what you've seen so far of Havertz, have you been impressed with him?
I've sort of the similar mindset as you at first. I wasn't really sure that summer signing, obviously everyone was excited about Rice, because we all knew that would be a great addition. He'd be a great addition to our squad. But for me, I was so excited about Timber, and obviously I'm hoping he's going to make his comeback in a couple months. So I kind of wasn't really focused too much on Havertz because there were so many mixed reviews, and I wasn't really sure how he'd slot in. And it's taken a while, like it's taken a good chunk of the season, but I think now we're seeing him as the player he's meant to be, and maybe that is because he's almost playing that cam position. I mean, when we played West Ham, you could really see that how interchangeable the positions were with Trossard and him up top, almost like a box formation. Like that's what James was talking about a lot on AFTV. You could really see that square formation, and I think he's just more comfortable on the ball. He's more positive with his play, definitely recently, because at the beginning of the season, I was getting really annoyed that every time he got the ball, he'd turn around and pass it to Rice. And I was like, no, you're meant to be driving towards the goal. Whereas now, but obviously, he got the last goal in the 5-0 win at the weekend. We're seeing him now making those progressive passes, taking the ball, driving forwards. And it's really encouraging to see. It is so bad how, as a fan base, people are so quick to judge and just rule out players. But like you, I kind of hold my hands up that
Yeah,
I didn't rule him out, but I just wasn't overly confident because it's just hard to see how a player is going to slot in until you've seen them in at
yeah.
least a couple of games. But I definitely think he's now made his mark. He's here to stay for at least another season. Like I'm excited to see him at the start of next season, in the form he is now, hopefully, because I don't want him to go backwards. So hopefully, yeah, it'll be good to see him carry on.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think when we signed him, I think it has been very much like a project player for Arteta in the likes of, we saw with Xhaka that he was going to leave. Arteta, kept him at Arsenal, and he completely made him a better player. And I do see that in Havertz. I do see Arteta is making him a better player. I do think, at Chelsea, he was, he wasn't really performing well enough. Chelsea, I think, probably wasn't the right environment for him at that time, and I feel like coming to Arsenal has been a fresh start for him and has really helped him in his career. And he looks so happy here. It's lovely to
Yeah.
see that. And I think for me, like, even when he doesn't score goals, I feel like his performances are really good. I know we obviously want to see goals, and it was good to see him score against Burnley, and it's really good to see that we've also got a lot of different goal scorers, because I know before Dubai, we were really struggling for goals. Like, it felt to me like all of our players just lacked this confidence at the
Mhm.
same time. It was massively frustrating, wasn't it?
No, literally. I think as well, injuries suddenly just hit us like a truck. Like, honestly, with Jesus, I feel because he's so in and out of the squad, like when he's on it, he's on form and he's really good to have up top. But we can't always rely on him because he is injured so often. So having someone like Havertz, when he's more in his comfy cam position, that's really good to have him there as well. And especially at Chelsea, like you're saying, he did have poor performances, but I just think that's because they didn't utilize him how they should have in the right positions. But that obviously just depends who's surrounding him as well. Definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's really good to see him here at Arsenal. And I know he has obviously cost money. That's a lot to people, but I just feel like he's definitely going to be the right signing, and he's
Mhm.
definitely helped us in this title race, and it's definitely getting exciting. And I know for us, we have spoken about silverware and how important it is, and there has been this question going around, and because it has been a while since we have won silverware, like, the league, FA Cups. I know Arteta did win us the FA Cup, and we have won a few community shields, which, for me, a trophy is a trophy, and I'll be happy with that. But obviously, we do want to win league titles, and this season, we know it's going to be really competitive. But with Arteta, like, say next season, I'll talk about next season because I know this season we have had injuries, but if we didn't win anything next season, how would you feel regarding with Arteta?
It's a tricky one. It's really tricky because I think with football, it is crazy how, like what you were saying about Dubai, before it, people were probably more on the Arteta out. Like that
Yeah,
hashtag was sort of trending a little bit. And then suddenly since it's we're invincibles again, like we're amazing, we're doing so good. And it is just really tricky to navigate it. Like you said, silverware is silverware. It doesn't matter if it's the Conti
yeah,
Cup, like in the WSL, like it doesn't matter if it's the League Cup, F Cup, it doesn't matter what it is. But obviously you want to win that title. Because I think there's a lot more pride when you win the title, and especially when you haven't done it for quite a few seasons. This season I don't think we should rule anything, like
yeah,
rule him out, if that makes sense, just in because it's not looking too likely for us to win the league. But next season, if we're keeping up with the same form, the same squad pretty much, all the players that are very young, you think Saka, he's still so young. Just think in another year, if he's still getting all this game time, we've got such a young squad that over the next couple of seasons we should be getting that silverware. So I think then questions may arise at that point, but I think it's almost a you'll cross that bridge when you get to it
yeah,
situation. And I'm hoping we don't have to get to that because I'm hoping we do win that silverware. I think it's the same with Jonas Edeval with the women's side though. That we need to start getting that silverware because football is about silverware, as in we can't be mocking Spurs if we're not even getting that silverware ourselves right now. So it's just you need to have it
yeah.
as leverage as well. But this season, I think if it doesn't happen, we'll go again next season and just see what happens. Are you sort of on the same page as that, or are you more
Yeah, I think
hopeful?
it's people have asked me that question before, and I
Mhm.
think it's a really difficult one to answer, because I think, unfortunately, football, if we got rid of Arteta, I just think, what other manager would you bring
Who
in? And also,
who to replace,
with
honestly.
what, like, I couldn't really think of anyone that I think would really because it's also about finding the right manager for these players as well, because they've worked under quite a few different ones since Wenger, and I don't think I'm not a big fan of changing managers,
Mhm.
unless unless you get to a point where you feel like you can't recognise your club. And there has been times with me with Arteta where I've really questioned it. I know the semi-final in Europa League, like, there's been so many times, but I think he's built this culture here at Arsenal. He's just built something so beautiful, like with the fans as well. We've got this connection between the players, which I do think is down to Arteta. But you look at the trophies, and I think if we go next season and we've not won anything, I think for me it's gonna be it's difficult, because as much as we're progressing and we're challenging, we've got to be winning stuff. And if we're not, like you said, we can laugh at other teams like Chelsea,
Yeah,
Spurs. But if we're not up there, if we're not winning
exactly.
things, it's not really. It is a difficult one, because for me, I like Arteta, but I also question some of his decisions. I think recently he's not really made many mistakes.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I mean, I'm happy to be proved wrong. Like with the Smith Rowe thing, I think looking back, maybe I was wrong. Maybe because he picked up an injury again.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted Smith Rowe to get more minutes, and now I've probably realised he's struggling to manage his injury. Maybe that's why he can't really play much. So I think for me, I'm always happy to be proved wrong, but I do want Arteta to have success here, hopefully very soon.
Yeah, no, I think that's the main aim. But I think what you said as well about knowing their players, they've got to be people, if that makes sense. They've got to know
Yeah,
how their players work, what makes them tick. And I think that's something you can see from both Arsenal managers. But it's whether that then results in trophies at the end of the day. Because if you're creating that cohesion, you're creating that solidarity in the team, which obviously is working so well as of lately. It's just about keeping that up so much so
yeah.
that others can then see it and other clubs can then almost look in and go, okay, they're getting a lot of success. How are they doing that? We want those questions rather than, are you going to get rid of your manager? Like, we don't want
Yeah,
any of that.
I think it's quite easy to kind of blame managers these days for things. And
Mhm.
for me, like with the women's team with Jonas, I think I really like him. I know from the start I've always liked him. I've always loved his passion.
Yeah.
Um, And I think the signings he's brought in, a lot of them have been very successful. I know Nikita Paris, that one just didn't work, and that just happens. But I think
Mhm.
the rest of them have been really good. And I do sort of question as well, the season, if we don't win anything, if we go next season and we have that same problem, like should he go? Like it's a difficult one, because I know that he's really changed this Arsenal team, and we look so much better than what we
Mhm.
did, maybe a year or two back. But um, with you, how do you feel about? I know we sort of briefly spoke about it, but like I said with Arteta, next season, if it comes to it and we're not able to win anything, do you think maybe we should move on from him?
I I personally don't. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah,
Um, kind of what you said about change. I think when the players have so much inconsistency, they're not only working with new players at each transfer that have got to slot in, but also if you're having to deal with a new manager. With the new manager, I guess comes new other
yeah,
coaches because they're not just like you said. There shouldn't just be blame on them because you have your set pieces coach, you have your goalkeeper coach, you have so many different people underneath their manager that I think it would really cause a lot of change. And Arteta is building something. I'm here for the long term. Like I feel like
yeah,
he's building something up. So if we're just gonna knock it down at the first hurdle, if that makes sense, because the last couple of seasons have been good in the Premier League. But obviously last season we started off really strong and then towards the end kind of dipped off a bit, whereas this season it's kind of been slower and now we're proving who we are as of recently. So I think for me personally, I think it would be quite quick to get rid of
yeah.
Arteta. So I wouldn't really want that.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm with you. I don't really agree with getting rid of managers unless I feel like we've come to a point where we really can't, move forward and we are struggling. I think with Arteta, what I've noticed that we'll go through like, bad results, but then we'll find our way forward. And I'm seeing this with Jonas as well this season, that we'll struggle, we'll pick ourselves back up, and we're able to do that. I think because we're in the Conti Cup as well, I think that's a really good thing for us. I know it would be good to win the league this season as well as maybe winning the Continental Cup, but I know with Emma Hayes' last season, it's I think they'll really want to win that for her, because I suppose if they don't, they want a good send off for her as well. So there's like a lot of pressure as well to do that. So yeah, I think we've really got to give these managers time, and fans don't like to hear that because we want to win things straight away. But I think for Jonas, for Arteta, I think next season will be massive. I know this season, well, for Arteta, I think we're still in a good position. Both the men and the women are. We're still competing. We're still up there. It could be anyone's. Like, I still don't know. For the men's team, if I just don't know who's going to win the league, because I have a feeling Liverpool will, because this season they just seem a lot stronger. But it's really tough. Like, I couldn't tell you who I think it is right now because it's so tight, isn't it?
I've sort of gone the other way, and I'm thinking, right, City will probably do it again, which is gutting. I don't want them to do it again, but I'd almost rather them do it because they've done it recently than get another team in and get Liverpool to win it, if that makes sense. Like, I want the next ones to win the league. But it is just so hard to predict it all. Even with the women, I was so adamant a couple of weeks ago. I was like, Chelsea are going to win it. Even after we beat them, I was like, Chelsea will do it, because I felt like we were losing silly points against West Ham and like that. I was like, now we're dropping off. And then now I'm sort of like, oh, it could be anyone's. Like, City could do it for both WSL and Premier League.
Yeah.
That would be the worst thing ever. But
honestly, God, no, that doesn't happen.
So I'm hoping we can at least get something, even if it is, like you said, the League Cup. But I guess we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it is really tough, I think it could be anyone's now. I think that's kind of what it makes it exciting. I know for us, if it went down to the last day for both sides, it would be stressful. Like, I know with the women's team, I think it was a few seasons back where we were a point away from Chelsea, so they needed to lose. And do you know, when I was watching that, I was so stressed out. Like, I don't really pray, but I was like, Arsenal, please.
No, literally.
It was so stressful watching that, because I remember United. I think United were winning at first. I can't remember what the score was, and then Chelsea, Sam Kerr came back. I just felt so heartbroken. It took me so long to get over that.
Did you go to the game? Because I was at the Arsenal game, and honestly, we were all watching the Arsenal, because I think it was Arsenal West Ham. I want to say it was West Ham.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was. Yeah,
and we needed to win it, and then we needed Chelsea to obviously lose for us to then win, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember we were all sat in the little dugout, because it was at Dagenham and Redbridge or something like that. We were all sat in the little stand, and then I just remember everyone was suddenly looked at their phone and they were like, "Oh my God, United have scored!" And we were just so happy.
I know.
And then suddenly we all just went so quiet, because we were like telling the players, we were like, "Look, we're winning. We're like, you're gonna do it." And then when Chelsea scored, I was like, this is just typical. Like, it's just so nice. It had to be Sam Kerr as well. Like, it's just...
You know what? It must be really hard for players, because at that moment when they knew, they could really do it, and then they get excited, but they've got to focus on the game. And then when they know, it must be, I felt so deflated when we didn't do it, because for me that's probably been our best chance of the league in a very a long time. So I felt like, for me, it was so painful. But I think this season, it'd be lovely to see us win the league. I know, you never know. Man City, Chelsea could drop points. I hope they do, because
I'm hoping they do.
Imagine both Arsenals winning the league. I mean, one would make me happy, but I hope we get to see that silverware. And it has been really lovely to chat with you today, Lucy. And it's flown by really quick, and I've really enjoyed this. But to those that might not know you, I know you're quite new to kind of doing this on like AFTV and your Instagram. Do you want to just tell people where they can find you and like what sort of stuff you do?
Yeah, so basically my account is just called Loose Chat Sport. On both Instagram and TikTok is where I mostly produce content on there. But obviously, like you said, I am on AFTV every so often, just freelancing on there. It's just mostly Arsenal content or just about issues in the game. So recently, obviously, we had the issues with Switzerland and their funding for the Euro. So little topics like that I bring up just to create some conversation in the comments. But generally, it's about Arsenal's success recently, so it's been a pretty good time. But yeah, I'm fairly new to it, so just sort of seeing where it takes me.
I love that, and please do give Lucy a follow. I will put her stuff on in the description as well. But it has been, so lovely to chat with you about Arsenal. Fingers crossed we can get that win tomorrow as well, and we'll go in the right direction. Let's hope we can beat
Yes.
Porto and Newcastle at the weekend. But yeah, like I said, I've really, really enjoyed this. To those that are watching this, please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe, and I'll see you all in my next video.